In ballet, you call
All
them
right,
girls and
stand by.
boys.
We're going to start.
Nobody really. There was, I think, one girl that
Welcome to the Arts and
very
Antique Radio Show,
weird.
where your host, nationally recognized certified appraiser Elizabeth Stewart, Santa Barbara's treasure sleuth, will help you put a value on the treasures in your own home.
Every time it rains, pennies from heaven. Don't you know each cloud contains pennies from heaven?
So let's find out,
Stand by.
how valuable is it?
3, 2, 1. You're live.
Hello, 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 Santa Barbara. It's your chantress of everything valuable and beautiful, Elizabeth Stewart. And we covered this theater company that I was really interested in for fractured actors. And lo and behold, they're doing a play that is so perfect for this radio show. You won't believe it. It's a play called Red by John Logan. And it's a play about Mark Rothko, who's a painter. And if you ever looked at a Rothko work, I'm a native Chicagoan, and there's a Rothko room at the Art Institute in Chicago. And what you have going there is these, if you can picture it, they're vertical pieces cut in the middle with a slight graduation in color. And they're so subtle and they're so moving, especially if you look around that room and you see, just this whole 360 of these pieces. And they're large, they're 5 foot plus. Anyway, this play Red is about that artist, Mark Rothko, who had a really quite an interesting life. And by the way, I should also mention that he designed the paintings, at least the ones at the Art Institute of Chicago. He designed those for a place of worship. And it really works. Even though you're in a museum, you really feel that sense of spirituality. Anyway, that's Mark Rothko. He's the protagonist of the play. And then we have his aspiring assistant. And we're going to talk with the two actors and the director. So we have Mark Rothko in the play, who has a huge commission for a series of murals for New York's Four Seasons restaurant. And he's located, his studio is in the Bowery in New York. And he and his assistant are working to try to keep up with the pace of the commission. And, it's very interesting because I work with a couple of much younger people as appraisers, so I'm a mentor. And I don't necessarily, I take it as a shock when one of my students appears to know more than I do. It can't happen. It just, it's like, well, I'm supposed to be the elder. I'm supposed to know more. I'm supposed to have more experience. And in a couple of cases, I've had students over the years who just took it and ran with it. And that is, at first you're like, oh, you can't believe it. It's like, well, but I'm supposed to be the teacher. This is what's happening in this play, is that Ken, we're going to talk to the actor who plays Ken. Ken, the assistant, challenges Rothko on a number of levels. And what I know about Rothko is that the ego is both large and very sensitive. And it's anyway the reputation. So this is a portrait of the artist's ambition and vulnerability. And this is a performance that only plays 8 performances. So I thought we would talk about the play. And I want to introduce firstly the director, Karen Noel. Karen is here. And it's just a really interesting bio. She studied theater at UC Davis. She's a carpenter. She did set design for the Sacramento Shakespeare Festival. And in that we have commonality, because I did set design and large mural painting for many, many theater companies over the years. It's a thankless job in many cases. Karen's been involved in theater since 2005. She met her husband, Mike, who plays Rothko in this play, and she's directing her husband. How interesting. She is no stranger to male ego on stage. Her directorial debut was Freud's Last Session. I saw that at the Geffen. It's a fantastic play. That was in 2017. And then that was also a two-man show with Freud and his interviewer. And she's excited to return to an intimate format with the two-man show. And we also saw her in The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime in 2019, which also starred the actor who plays Ken in Red. And then I did cover this summer speakeasy project, which was really fun to do. There was so many actors that came on my radio show. We talked about the speakeasy project also with Fractured Actors. And I want to introduce Karen, who I really want to know more about the company Fractured Actors and what your mission is. Karen, can you tell us a little bit about Fractured Actors?
Yeah, I can. Hi. I'm gonna just preemptively apologize. I have my little one. She's 18 months old here running around in the background. So if you hear little babbling noises, she's just excited about art. That's all.
She's making sure we run our lines before we
She's making sure we know our lines for tonight. So yeah, I'm part of the board of directors for Fractured Actors in addition to being the director for this show. And it was launched, oh gosh, like over 20 years ago by Brian White as actually a church troupe, and started out as doing like church plays, theater, for that are themed towards religion. And then we began to do some pieces that were a little bit on the edge for the religious community, that were pro-science, that questioned the existence of God. And so we started doing #NotAChurchPlay. And that kind of turned into the modern rendition of Fractured Actors that now is truly like a really beautiful community theater company. And the name, I think, comes from the idea of like we are broken people and we are creating art and doing this world together and doing life together. And that is a beautiful thing, that our pain can be an important and beautiful thing in creating that art.
Do you have a resident home?
We do, yes. So we actually operate out of the Liminal Church of Ventura on Palma, and share that theater with them, that space with them. And it's a beautiful warehouse that just lends itself perfectly to a small gathering place and also a black box theater, which is how we like to host most of our shows.
When you say black box,
yeah,
a lot of people won't know what that is.
Thank you, yes, for reminding me. So black box is a really amazing, cool idea that comes from community theater and professional theater alike, and it's the idea of kind of a blank space. So black box theaters are these usually rectangular or square shaped rooms that are empty, and then you can kind of configure them however you want to. So there will often be like risers or just seat configurations. And what's cool about it is you can do it in the round, which means you have audience on all sides. You can do it as like a traditional set where you have like the audience on one side and everybody else on the other. So it's this really, really flexible space.
Okay, so now I want you to contrast Red with Freud's Last Session, because you're dealing with some major, like I said, egos here. So tell me how you approach that, the contrast.
Oh, that is such a good question. So Freud's Last Session was actually the first thing I ever directed. I was invited to direct that by Brian, and who started the company. He and Jeff Ham, who's also on the board of directors, wanted to do this piece, and we had been asked to do this piece by the church, and they said, "Hey, can you direct us? Because we don't want to not have a director. We need to have someone kind of eyes on." And it was, I think the difference that I experienced most in that was here I was like a brand new director, lots of experience in theater, but not a lot of experience in that role. And I was directing two pros. I mean, Brian and Jeff had done so much theater and they knew what they were doing. But they really like opened their hearts to me in a beautiful way, and honestly gave me a lot of confidence. They set down the place where they could have sat, which is like, hey, I know what I'm doing, and I don't need any help here, and truly like ask for help from somebody who was new at that particular task. And that really runs counter to the egos that you would see in characters like C.S. Lewis and Sigmund Freud, who they played. So that was really, really cool. And they also were playing these two artists. They were playing people who are writers and scientists and creatives. And then on this side, we've got these two young guys here. Mike is not quite as young as he used to be, but he's still in that range and plays a character much older than him. And Ben and Mike are wildly talented, like way more talented than they really ought to be for the amount of years that they have, and they have done the same. Like, it's been a beautiful experience to watch them come in and just say like, okay, Karen, like, what do you see? What do you need? What do you need from us? And I've challenged them. I've pushed them. I've said like, nope, you've got it wrong. We've got to go this direction instead. And they've really been open to that. So I think what's been cool about this is like, it had every opportunity, both of those shows, for the director, especially a woman, to kind of have the feeling of like being auxiliary. And I have not felt that way. I have felt very central and to both of these pieces.
So in directing, well, how can I ask this question? So there's apocryphal information about Freud and how Freud behaved. Likewise, apocryphal information about Rothko. So I guess this might be a question for you, Karen. Then I want to introduce Mike Lee Murphy, who plays Rothko. But the question is, do you rely on that personality that has been reported through the ages when you direct both a Freud and a Rothko, or do you let it kind of be organic?
Oh, I love that. That's both, truly. Like, I think part of the time we're doing research and we're talking about these people, these big, larger than life characters that everyone knows so much about. And we're bringing in a lot of the experiences that we know from their lives, from what we know, like the general canon of knowledge, and also like digging into sort of the corners of their child and their upbringing. We're bringing all of that in. And then on top of that, I think what's beautiful about live theater is that we also get to tell the story for today. And so Logan agrees with me. My daughter is she's agreeing with me. But we also get to tell a story for today. And that's one of the reasons why I was really insistent that like Mike was the right person to play this role, because he brings a humor that I think is really important when we're talking about Rothko. It's important to have like some diversity. Oh my goodness. I think it's important to have like some diversity and some sense of like a little lightheartedness, and truly like talk about artists the way that they are, the way that we need to see them today. You know, it doesn't have to all be so heavy. And Mike brought a lot of that comedy in. So, and the same thing with Brian when he was playing Freud, I think was really cool to watch him bring some of that humanness in as well.
Okay, so now I would like to say Mike is Mike Lee Murphy, and he's playing Rothko.
Yeah.
And he writes to me that the life of a real artistic legend has been fascinating to portray, and deeply human and relatable character with light and dark sides. And it's interesting because when we think of his work, it's usually dualism, light and dark. Right. Yeah. So Mike, can you reflect on that for me?
Sure. Yeah. So that's getting into kind of, to piggyback on what Karen was saying, getting into a character like this can be daunting because this is a real life person. This is a larger than life figure whose work has far outlived them at this point. And finding we put folks on these pedestals and they feel so untouchable. So doing a play like this, digging into who this person was, learning about their life. We, watched a documentary that was from the perspective of his children talking about him. And so we got a lot of insight into who this person was. And it's just something as simple as knowing this person was a father, I guess just brings someone like a Rothko down to a human level, realizing that like they had the same stressful mornings probably that Karen and I might have with our young one, and all of that. And so I think that was kind of the most fascinating piece of digging into Rothko, was just figuring out how truly human this person is. They have light and dark. So too do we. Like, we struggle with things. We have humor sides. We have sides that we don't love so much. We have sides that we wish we didn't show. And Rothko, was just doing his best, I feel like, to try to make sense of the world, make sense of and understand himself, understand his world and his situation, where he came from, what makes him tick. And those are just things that I can completely relate to. Rothko has times where he's deeply insecure about the future and about being remembered and being important. And this is someone who, by every metric, is incredibly successful. And still they struggle. And I can relate in a huge way to that. So seeing that and learning about Rothko's made me appreciate the work so much more. We got to go to the Modern Art Museum in downtown LA and see they have one Rothko. And just makes you appreciate, even if you don't quite understand everything that was going on in that painting, you appreciate that there is so much going on beyond. There is so much intentionality there, and attempts to communicate and connect, which is cool, especially in a character who can be pretty abrasive at times. And, it's like, well, maybe they don't have the best bag of tools, but they are wanting the same thing that we all want. We all want connection. We all want to be a part of something. We want to not be left behind or be alone.
So two questions. Number one, did the real life Rothko have an assistant?
Yeah. So he had several. So we don't think that there was a specific Ken, that existed that kind of pushed Rothko to make these decisions, but there clearly was a period of time where Rothko was on this trajectory to making these murals for this commission, and then did change his mind and back out.
Okay.
And so
then the other question. So, and then I want to follow that up with Benjamin, who plays Ken, when we get back from the break. But the other question, and I want to go to Benjamin, then I want to come back to you, Mike, because I'm interested to know, I've worked for 30 years with artists, visual artists, 2 and 3 dimensional artists.
Yeah.
And because I'm an appraiser, appraise fine art, etc. So I work with artists, and it's been very interesting to watch plays about artists, because I remember seeing a play based on the life of Monet, and the actor who played Monet did not convey to me, and I think probably the audience, the sense that he had to be and was dominated by his visual acumen. So we have, for example, somebody is kinetically connected, somebody is orally connected, somebody is visually connected. So, we have different ways of being human. And I was interested to see that the actor who played Monet did not bring to me the idea that his dominating sense in life was visual. And I don't know it in a written, communicated word, what a play is.
Yeah.
How an actor would convey this deep sense that it's almost like a monkey on the back, to be totally dominated by this visual sense. because you cannot unsee something once you've got that in your head as an artist. And that's been the overriding thing in my career, studying the works of artists, that it's a blessing and a curse to have this tremendously talented visual sense, some of which is down to the narrow field of seeing colors where other people don't.
Right.
And how you convey that as an actor, I don't know. I'm interested to know. But let's go to quick break, and then I want to introduce Benjamin Colby Wilson, who plays Ken. And what an interesting person this young guy is. And we're going to talk a little bit about Benjamin and how he pushes back as an actor against a massive ego like Rothko's. The play is read by John Logan. It is playing now, and we have 3 people with fractured actors that are talking with us. You only have till November 12th to see the play. There is a matinee on Saturday, November. Oh, there was. Anyway, you can take a look at theater at Liminal, 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 Liminal Ventura. Or you can contact Jeff Ham, and Jeff is 323-314-9641. And I'll tell you that phone number again if you want to find out more about the play. And of course, buy tickets, theater at Liminal Ventura. Don't turn that down. Back in a second, we're going to introduce to the show Benjamin Colby Wilson, who plays Ken, in just a minute. Hey, Richard.
All right. You're clear.
Girlfriend is chatty.
She's an artist, man. She's a tour de force. She wants her. She's like, I got thoughts about the play.
My daughter is being
Your daughter.
my daughter.
No, this gentleman who played Monet, Mike.
Yeah.
So there's this thing that I've noticed. There's a characteristic, like a body characteristic of some visual artists. They taste and they feel the colors, and they do this funny thing with their sense of touch around a painting.
Yeah.
And I didn't see that at all. And I was thinking, there's certain ways of addressing the visual world that an actor has, or that a painter has, that I don't know how it's when I see it, I know it, but this actor he didn't do it.
Yeah, that's interesting. They work different than painters, that's for sure. Darling, I gotta say your backdrop looks really nice, and I worked really hard on it. It looks really awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
What about mine?
Ben, it's exactly what I want it to be.
Yeah,
No,
white.
I have no notes.
Just white.
What does white make you think of? You know what I'm saying?
Bones.
Mike, I'll give you a funny example. So I had an artist come to my house. We were talking about me writing something about her work and this sort of thing. And so I had on my desk, I had this ancient way of keeping, my appointments, which is used to be called the day timer. And she looks at me and she says, I don't use my phone. I use a day timer too. It's really hard to find pages, isn't it? And I said, yeah. I said, why did you stick with it? I know why I did. She says, because I can see.
All right, stand by. We're coming back in 3, 2, 1. You're live.
Welcome back. It's Elizabeth Stewart. I'm speaking with 3 talented folks from Fractured Actors Theater Company in Ventura, and we're talking about their play Red, which is really, it's a two-handed play, 2 men play. Iconic painter Mark Rothko and his aspiring assistant, who is played by Benjamin Colby Wilson. and the character's name is Ken in the play. And I want to talk a little bit to Benjamin here on two levels. When Benjamin isn't acting, he's promoting veganism to anyone that has not aligned with this issue of eating meat. And he is a researcher in animal agriculture. And it's very interesting. He would love to talk about this a little bit, as well as the role that he's doing, which is Ken, the assistant to Mark Rothko. But beautiful and fascinating biography that Benjamin has. First of all, I want to say, Benjamin, I'd love for you to talk about this idea of how you portray, what do I want to say? You're the younger assistant. You know, you talk in your bio about speciesism. And I was thinking about this. How do I ask Benjamin about ageism, another ism, where you've got this dichotomy going on between you and Rothko? Can you talk about that a little?
Sure. I mean, one thing that Karen and I found in creating Ken, creating his character, was finding a way to show his naivety, but without it being so overwhelming. Like, what did you say, Karen? What was the words you used? It was like an unnoticed naivety or whatever.
Perceived naivety. Perceived that
Perceived
he appears to not know as much as he actually does.
Right, but then we see him, I mean, it's written perfectly well that we see that he has been through enough to be able to talk about art in a very complex way and to talk about things that are very important, you know. I think the play is a really good example of showing it doesn't matter how old you are, it matters how much you've been through, right? And how much you've learned in your life, because, you know, someone in their 20s can learn just as much as someone in their 40s. It just depends on what they went through in life. And I think Ken is a perfect example of that person, of showing that it doesn't matter if he's 23, 24, 25, he comes across as someone who is much older and wiser, and it's a beautiful thing. Rothko notices that in the play, and we were able to pulsate off each other because of that. I think ageism is a very prevalent factor in the play.
Okay, so now you led me to ask another interesting question, which is an observation as well. And I would say that, you know, having worked with artists for, gosh, most of my career, you have both the perceived naivety of an artist, but you also have the naturally gifted that don't have to go through much in life. None of this tortured artist stuff. They just come out of the tube ready to roll. And it's, you know, it's not like we've got this romantic idea that the creative juices are enhanced by, you know, the trials and tribulations of an artist's life. But then there's these artists where you think you didn't take any of those stripes to get to where you are. You just naturally are good and you're naturally gifted. So I'd be interested to know how you balance that in your role.
I think you're right in saying that Ken is a very smart person. And I actually wanted to go back to what you said earlier. I thought what you said was very interesting about how in the beginning of this talk, how you were talking about how when you're in the art world and you're seeing someone who is younger than you, who seems smarter than you, right, in the subject of art, and you feel like, oh man, this guy he's been through so much less than me, he's younger than me, he, like, the fact that he knows more than me is almost threatening, right? That kind of feeling. I feel like it's actually the opposite in this scenario. I don't think Ken is smarter than Rothko. I think Ken recognizes Rothko as someone who is smarter and wiser and bigger than him in a lot of ways. But Rothko, as you see in the play, he goes through the turmoil of trying to figure out how to not sell out, how to not, like, he has all the tools to be this amazing person, but he's not using them. And Ken recognizes that. He looks at Rothko and goes, this guy is amazing. I want to bring out the best in him because he has so much to give. And I think Ken, in his wisdom, is trying to bring that out of him, because guess what? Ken wants to learn from him too. You know, I think that Ken knows that he has more to offer than Ken has to offer to him, and he wants to bring that out of him. Sure, I do believe that Ken is a smart guy, but I think that Rothko Mark Rothko has much more to offer. He just is holding back. So I think that was a lot that I found in the play. There was like a lot of in my role as Ken, I think there was a lot of moments for me to find places where I'm begging for Rothko to get out of his slump so he could prove to the world and show the world his gifts. You know what I mean?
Do you feel, though, sometimes that a failure is an achievement? So, if Rothko can't work himself through the commission and he feels that he needs to, so how does your character deal with that? In other words, we have this idea that achievement is doing, not necessarily turning down in this culture.
Absolutely. We have lines in the play that say that. There's a line we talk about Matisse, he was on his deathbed, but still he never gave up. On his deathbed, he was still organizing the color patterns in the ceiling. He had to be who he was. And then following that, or prior to that, he says to Rothko, you're giving up, you're losing hope, you're losing relevance, you're saying goodbye. He wants the opposite for him. He wants him to shut down those feelings and to turn on that Matisse in him, and I think that finding that in Ken to just constantly try to bring that out of him was like one of the bigger things that we were focusing on with Ken, to try to find that Rothko can achieve not giving up in this play. I think that Rothko does do that too. He finds himself, because he lives beyond this. He goes on another 20 years after this play, and he experiences he has another child, and he goes on and makes more beautiful art and blesses this world with more and more of his own art. And I think that was the biggest part of the play, just showing people that you can get out of the slump and you can achieve and all those things.
Okay, so I want to say that I asked your publicist if maybe you could do some lines on the air. And when we get back from the break, I'd love to hear a little dialogue, if that's okay, Mike and Ken. Will that work for you guys?
We love it. Absolutely.
Okay, let's go to a quick break, and then we'll hear a little bit of the play read. And we're talking to the three members of the company Fractured Actors. The play is read. If you're interested in the portrayal of artists on stage, this is a must-see. Theater at Liminal Ventura. And you can look at that website and take a look at the information on the play. You can also come to be an acquaintance of mine, Jeff Ham, who's one of the board members of Fractured Actors. If you want to find out more, if you'd like to cover this, he is at 323-314-9641. Don't turn that down. Back in a minute. We're going to hear a little dialogue when we get back, and treat ourselves to that. Don't turn. Richard? Hey, Richard.
You're clear.
Okay, good.
I also put in the chat, there's a coupon code for tonight only for a BOGO. We want to mention that.
Okay. I just got your text.
Yeah, so I'm just out of break on the radio program, but is there something you need? Yeah.
Nick is sitting in his car at his apartment, listening, and put a video of him listening to our interview. That's pretty cool.
Who is?
My brother. He's just didn't have like a radio in the home, so he went out to his car real quick to listen and stuff. And we got my mom and her dude John driving down, so they're listening on the road and stuff, which is super cool.
That's tight.
Yeah, it's awesome.
My brother's listening to it. I'll send you the screenshots, the text he's sending me in a second.
Yeah.
Pretty funny.
That's cool.
My parents are listening to on an actual radio.
Okay.
Your mom's listening while she drives.
Yeah.
What's that?
Mike's mom's listening while she's driving down here.
They're road tripping down. They're going to babysit Logan tonight, and they're coming to the show tomorrow, along with Nick. And Logan's going to come to the theater, so we'll get to have her nap out during the show. Which would be cool.
Right.
I mean, she could probably just go on stage for us, I imagine.
And just to let you know, I don't know if you heard me, we have a coupon code for tonight only. So it's a buy one, get one.
Okay,
If you want to mention it, it's Seeing Red.
Seeing Red.
Yes.
Seeing Red. Yeah, you can punch that in on the website when you go to check out, and it'll do a buy one, get one. If folks are intrigued.
Have you had good attendance, Karen?
We've had pretty good attendance. Yeah, it's definitely more challenging with the two-person show because we do rely a lot on friends and family. But we've had really beautiful audiences, and it lends itself to a small group of folks.
Yeah, we deliberately made a really intimate setting to kind of bring people into the studio, so to speak. And I think the size crowds have really served that well, keeping it cozy.
Now, who in your family had red hair?
All of my aunts have red hair. All of my aunts have red hair, and I think that's where this one got it from.
Yeah,
It's so beautiful. So I have a granddaughter who we come from a long line of blondes,
Yeah.
and my granddaughter all of a sudden is strawberry blonde, and
Yeah.
we don't know where it came from because we don't have any red. I mean, it's just kind of like what, and also I can see it in your little girl. What's her name, Karen?
Her name's Logan.
Logan.
Like
Okay,
John
and
Logan.
All right,
Yeah.
stand by. Here we go in 3, 2, 1. You are live.
Welcome back. It's Elizabeth Stewart and Fractured Actors, a marvelous theater company, been around for 20 years in Ventura, and their play is Red. And we have the director with us, Karen Noel. We have Michael Lee Murphy, who plays Rothko. We have Benjamin Colby Wilson, who plays Ken. Ken is Rothko's assistant. And we also have the 18-month-old Logan, who's the daughter of the director and the lead actor. And this is really interesting because she's absolutely adorable. If you can see what I'm seeing, because we got the video on Zoom. She's a redheaded little Spitfire, and she's been running around the studio as yeah, amazing. So I would like to ask our two actors, Benjamin and Mike, to do a little bit of dialogue. And Mike, maybe you can give us a little background on the piece you're going to do.
absolutely. So we can do a couple little sections if that's all right, but we'll just start with the very opening of the play. So at the very top of the show, Rothko is in his studio looking at one of his paintings, and where we've set the paintings are actually over the audience. They're kind of an imagined painting, and so he's studying one of his works, and Ken comes in for the very first time, and right away Rothko sort of puts him through a test, doesn't do a formal hello. So he's going to kind of test his chops a little bit and try to get Ken off of his center, and kind of have Rothko take power and control in this moment. So yeah, this is the very, very top of the show here. And we're observing his work, one of Rothko's works. What do you see? Wait, stand closer. You've got to get close. Let it spread out. Let it work on you. Closer, too close. There. Let it spread out. Let it wrap its arms around you. Let it embrace you, filling even your peripheral vision so that nothing else exists or has ever existed or will ever exist. Let the picture do its work, but work with it. Meet it halfway, for God's sake. Lean forward, lean into it, engage with it. Now, what do you see? Wait. So now what do you see? Be specific. No, be exact. Be exact, but sensitive, you understand? Be kind. Be a human being. That's all I can tell you. Be a human being for once in your life. These pictures deserve compassion. They live or die in the eye of the sensitive viewer. They quicken only if the empathetic viewer will let them. That is what they cry out for. That is why they were created. That is what they deserve. Now, what do you see?
Red?
But do you like it? Speak up.
Yes.
Of course you like it. How can you not like it? Everyone likes everything nowadays. They like the television and the phonograph and the soda pop and the shampoo and the Cracker Jack. Everything becomes everything else. And it's all nice and pretty and likable. Where's the discernment? Where's the arbitration that separates what I like from what I respect, what I deem worthy, what has, listen to me now, significance? That's just a little first bit right there. So right away, Rothko kind of weighs on certain things that he cares about, significance, things having meaning, things being important. And you also see the very beginnings of his struggles with modern art and modern pop, things that are popular at the time, and feeling out of touch with that.
There's also a lot of physicality in that first scene too, as he's telling me to go forward, lean into it, all those things. I'm bending over completely for him, face first into a painting. He's adjusting lights around me. Wait, what do you see? Now what do you see? It's a lot of miming and moving and a lot of physicality.
Yeah. And then forcing Ken to stay in the picture. Literally, Rothko wants people to be able, and that's why they're so large, some of those paintings. He wants you to be in the work. Have it literally fill up everything you can see so that you are completely absorbed by it. And Rothko is literally kind of stalking behind Ken, weighing him, essentially, seeing what he's made of, can he withstand this initial barrage? Which is a thing that Rothko does a lot. Rothko tries to maybe to cover up his insecurity, control things by force and by using his intellect and using his just ability to talk a lot.
Curmudgeon.
Was that
a curmudgeon?
Oh yeah, that's a very fair word. He's a grump. And Ken, the thing I like about it, you'll see as the play goes, like Ken withstand that, and actually at one point just throws it all back in his face, says like, I'm over it, I reject your tricks. You have no power on me. The Jedi mind trick doesn't work anymore. So if we can keep going, if that's all right, we'll jump into scene
Sure,
2.
I'd love it. I'd love it. Live theater on the air is fantastic for me.
We'll give you seconds from a couple more scenes. So this is to set the stage for this. Rothko finds himself, we jump after the first scene about 3-4 months into Ken's tenure in the studio. So there's a little bit of Ken settling in. Ken has seen some of the highs and lows that Rothko will typically oscillate between. There's definitely times where Rothko is you could define as manic, and there's very much times where he's in a depressive state, and we find him there in scene 2, where he's not been able to paint for some time. He's really stuck. And Rothko thinks that he captures the inspiration for one moment, and then once again fails and isn't able to paint. And rather than face that, he takes it out on Ken in a tirade, literally has a temper tantrum. And coming out of that, we really see Ken kind of challenge Rothko for the first main time. So we'll hop into that.
Cool.
Yep. And we've just discussed what red is, and we're going to continue that discussion of what red may and may not be the color.
I meant sunrise.
Sunrise.
I meant the red at sunrise, the feeling of it.
Oh, the feeling of it. What do you mean the feeling of it?
I didn't mean red paint only. I meant the emotion of red at sunrise.
Sunrise isn't red.
Yes, it is.
I'm telling you it's not.
Sunrise is red and red is sunrise. Red is heartbeat. Red is passion. Red wine, red roses, red lipstick, beets, tulips, peppers.
Arterial blood.
That too.
The rust on the bike on the lawn.
And apples and tomatoes.
Dresden Firestorm at night, the sun and Rousseau, the flag and Delacroix, the Robin El Greco.
A rabbit's nose, an albino's eyes, a parakeet.
Florentine marble, atomic flash, Nick yourself shaving blood in the Barbasol.
The ruby slippers, Technicolor, that phone to the Kremlin on the president's desk.
Russian flag, Nazi flag, Chinese flag.
Persimmons, pomegranates, red light district, red tape rouge.
Lava, lobsters, scorpions.
Stop sign, sports car, a blush.
Viscera, flame, dead Fauvists.
Traffic lights, Titian hair.
Slash your wrist, blood in the sink.
Santa Claus.
Staten. So, red.
Exactly.
Well, there you go. That's just a couple little snippets and stuff. You start to see the dynamics just in that first scene and second scene where Rothko completely dominates in the start, and pretty early on, Ken has, some strength too, and isn't afraid to push back on Rothko a little bit. And then as the play proceeds, we just see that happen more and more, in kind of what you were saying earlier, Ben, those attempts to pull Rothko out of the drain that he's spiraling, whether or not Rothko is even fully aware of that. He is spiraling.
Right. Just after that passionate moment that we do have together where we're riffing on the color red, he spirals again after that, and Ken tries to pull him out, which doesn't work. And we don't see him get pulled out until halfway through the next scene. It's just like one of his paintings. It's a lot of pulsating, a lot of emotion, a lot of contrast. That's like the complexity of the human mind that we see constantly.
Yeah.
When you guys, it's a 2-man play. So what's interesting to me is there was a certain amount of, that you know your lines, and these are the lines, etc. But how much leeway do you give each other in regards to, let's say, the pacing of that in any given evening? So do you change? That was a da 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 da. And it was, do you ever want to change it up a little bit, and will your fellow actor respond well to a change?
It's different every night, for sure. I mean, we're not even done yet, honestly. We're still progressing as we're performing. We'll never reach perfection with this play because it is so human, and it is so imperfect, even though it's written so perfectly. But yeah, we had to find a lot of those pauses and a lot of the moments where we're not going da 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 da. We have to find places to slow down. We have to find places to speed up. Otherwise, it's not going to be engaging. There's a lot of moments where we talk about one of Nietzsche's book, the Birth of Tragedy, and it can easily be boring, seriously. But the way that we talk about his book, we talk about it in a way that we find so interesting, and I could just feel the audience engaging with that because we talk about the complexities of human beings through the words that were written in that book. So we had to definitely find those balances.
Richard's giving us a sign we got to go to quick break, but that is interesting because the Birth of Tragedy, it deals with the sublime, and I would be interested to hear maybe how Karen brought that into that sense of sublime. Is definitely, we see that. I mean, I was referring to the Rothko room at the museum in Chicago. You do sense the sublime, right. And I'm wondering how Karen masterminded bringing that sense to the stage. When we get back from the break, it's a question for Karen. So, hey, Richard, are you there?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, let's go to quick break, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how a director brings that sense of sublimity to a stage in which there's two performers in a black box. Interesting question. Don't turn that down. Back in a minute.
All right, you're clear.
I'll be right back. I'm just going to go grab my daughter.
If I were to choose between scene 3 and 4, I would choose 4 if we're gonna do another excerpt.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, and you'll have 3 minutes, Elizabeth.
Okay.
I prefer scene 5 myself. Although scene 6 is very emotional.
The mystery scene.
No, actually, scene 8 is the mystery scene.
That's true. Yeah, that's the one that we keep behind closed doors. You have to pay extra
take you into uncharted, timeless territory.
Mm-hmm.
Considering its
Bye-bye.
And beyond.
Okay. Hand it off.
So Mike is gone?
No, he'll be back. I just gave Logan to him. He's downstairs so that I can answer this question.
She sold him to the gypsies for a handful of beans, magic beans.
If the magic beans entertain a toddler, I want them.
You know, it's you're just almost through the worst, really, because you know, I mean, I was a mom, and now I have two grandkids, and you know, as they approach aged 2, you know, it's like, okay, it's really rocky, and then it gets much better.
Well, that's good to know. She's a firecracker, man. She just wants to touch
Yeah,
the fire.
yeah. So it's interesting though, but because my I have two grandkids from the same son, and the first was just could be so angry so quickly, and the second is just a slow burn, and they're so very different, but there's no explosions with the second. So they can be so different, but you know, now we hear on NPR this morning that people in daycare are saying that the generation of toddlers today has an anger management problem. It's like, what? Well,
Toddlers.
that's exactly right. Terrible twos, we used to say, and I suppose it's still the same.
You know, their little bodies are just going through a lot and growing a lot.
I know
Like the curly hair. That's very nice.
oh, I
Isn't
know
that
she's
cute?
beautiful. Yeah.
I don't know where she got the
Okay, we're
curly hair.
coming back. You have less than 3 minutes. 3, 2, 1, you're live.
Welcome back. It's Elizabeth Stewart. I'm speaking with 3 members of Fractured Actors, a theater company 20 years old in Ventura. Their play is Red. It got me interested because it's about Mark Rothko, the painter, and his assistant Ken. And we have the 2 performers that play Mark Rothko and Ken on the air today. The director, Karen Noel, I asked her an interesting question, and we don't have too much time, Karen, but bringing the sublime to the stage, how'd you do it?
Yeah, I really love that. I think one of the things that was most important to us was the fact that there's going to be a lot of interaction with the audience. And so we really designed the show to do that. There are 2 or 3 rows in the audience at most. You're in there, you're experiencing it. And Rothko talked a lot about how his paintings move, and we wanted to kind of create that same effect with the audience where they feel like they are a part of what's happening. And I truly think that is sublime. Like that is living at its best. And it makes you feel really good as an audience member, and it makes you feel really good as somebody on stage sharing that together. Each night is special and different and unique, and then it goes away.
And Benjamin, do you address the audience directly?
It's very subtle. We will look at there's one line where I do look directly at the audience, perfect eye contact. Mark Rothko has lines as well where he addresses them as the paintings. You know, when we look at the paintings, we look right above their heads. So we are basically looking at them, and they do feel like the art as we talk about it. So yeah, in short, yeah, we do.
Well, you know, guys, thank you so much. Just another shout out. This is the play called Red about Mark Rothko and his assistant. And this is starring Michael Lee Murphy and Benjamin Colby Wilson, directed by Karen Noel. You only have till the 12th to see the play. It's in Ventura Theater at Liminal Ventura, and Facebook, Fractured Actors. Take a look, and I'll see you there, guys. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
For having us.
Okay, and you are clear. I'll give you a couple
Excellent.
minutes. I will need the room, but you got a couple minutes to chat.
All right.
Okay,
Thanks so much
so
for having us.
I'm going to send to your publicist. I'm going to send the show, and I would love it if Benjamin and Mike could send me headshots to my email. It's elizabethappraisals@gmail.com, because we're going to post this show. It's going to run tonight at 8 p.m. and also Sunday at 11 a.m. So, you know, we'll, and then I want you guys to feel that you can use the show in any way you want. So if there's something that was said interesting and you want to take a clip, you can. If you want to use it on your website, anything you want to do with it is fine with us.
Okay.
And
Great.
yeah, so if you want to use it, and it's been really interesting, and you guys are fascinating people. I mean, just marvelous. And I love how I got in trouble many times because I was a single mom, and I was in set design, and I was traveling various theaters when I was, very young with my son, about 2 years old. And I remember being in Moscow. It was an exchange we did between my theater and a theater in Moscow. It was when, Russia was still red, believe it or not.
Mhm.
And so I remember having my son with me all the time in one of those packs, you wear in the front, and being on scaffolding and painting, massive murals and this sort of thing. And in the evening, we'd go to like a bistro, like a cabaret with the actors and such like, and I'd stick him underneath the bar stool in just in a little cozy blanket, and he would sleep under the bar stool. And if I did that today, I think I'd be hauled away. I think it's a different time, but I love to see the freedom in which, you're raising Logan. That's,
we grew up in the same way. Like, we were those kids at a restaurant, and they would just go under the table and play, then fall asleep inevitably. It's beautiful. We hope to instill a little bit of that. It is a different world now, but a hybrid version of that in the old, I think, is wonderful, and gets kids out into the world and experiencing it, which I think makes us better people.
So my son is I don't know what you call it, but this idea that no, the high chair has to be sprayed down with disinfectant before the baby even gets in it. And I had such an opposite way of looking at things.
Right.
I was like, okay, but,
we're in the age of information now, and so everything
know.
that we know too much in a way, because there are
that's
minuscule chances
interesting.
of something happening, but we see a statistic and it looks like it's humongous, and it's like, it's not any more dangerous or whatever than it used to be, but the information is always portrayed in a salacious way that makes us afraid of everything. So Karen and I have had to, like, as parents, remove from the internet a little bit, because everything seems like a world-ending event with your kid if you read the wrong blog. So we had to
interesting.
go with our intuition.
Benjamin, I raised my son vegetarian, and he never ate meat until, I guess, he moved in with his dad for a short time, who is British.
Okay,
and so
gonna
he
leave
loved
the room here shortly.
Okay, but anyway, it's just a different world. But thank you guys, and I'll send you the
so much,
show.
Elizabeth. We really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, thank you. It was
this
really
was awesome.
interesting.
Yeah,
Bye, guys.
Bye. Have a good one.